Welcome Beyond the Reiki Gateway. I'm your host, Andrea Kennedy. Like countless others, Reiki found me when I wasn't even looking, and then it ignited a whole new world of questions. This podcast explores topics of interest for the spiritually curious. Join me for discussions and special guests on subjects such as past lives, crystal healing, spiritual awakening, ascension, energy healing, and more, all to assist and inspire you along your unique soul's journey. Hello, everyone. It's Andrea, and I have a special announcement to make. I'm very excited to announce my 2 Reiki classes that I will be teaching in person this summer. They're going to happen in the United Kingdom. I'm traveling there from Michigan here in the United States, and I cannot wait to meet my Reiki students there. We'll be at the beautiful French Partridge Hotel near Northampton, and I will be teaching a Reiki 1 and 2 class June 13th and 14th, and then the Reiki Master class begins the 16th and goes through the 19th. We have special hotel accommodation packages available as well. Again, I cannot wait to meet you there and share Holy Fire Reiki with all of you. But class size is limited. To find out more and reserve your seat, please head over to mainstreamreiki.com. You'll see a banner at the top of the page. Click that. You'll get all the information. If you have questions, send me an email. Thanks so much. I hope it works out that we meet in class. Welcome to Beyond the Reiki Gateway. I'm Andrea Kennedy, your host. We're joined today in this episode by Nancy Rebecca. Nancy's a retired critical care and hospice nurse who had a spontaneous out-of-body experience in 1994 after her first attempt to meditate. Fast forward to today, and Nancy is a professional psychic healer and teacher. The intuitive mind is a focus for Nancy as she teaches seekers psychic mastery through her courses. You might know her also through her YouTube channel, where she guides viewers through these tumultuous but exciting times that we're all experiencing together. Welcome, Nancy. I'm just so thrilled that you said yes, and we got to meet here in the studio. So thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, and thank you, Andrea, for all the work that you do during these times as well to offer healing for others and information that might be very much needed right now.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be alive on the earth right now.
I am too.
You know, it's like I feel like I won the lottery to be here. So I think we're really similar in that. But
yeah,
our ability to communicate is amazing with technology and things like that. I mean, never before have we had this opportunity that we could meet like this and have this conversation and then share it with all of the listeners and the viewers as well. So
there was a long period of time. It felt like, because I've been at this for about 30 years, but it felt like a solid 15 years. I just thought, I don't know if I'm ever going to witness this time within my lifetime. My age was getting up there, and it was just like, I didn't think I would be able to be here to witness it. And now it's happening, and I'm so glad.
And when you say it is happening, can you put that into words for us?
Yeah, the big awakening, where an awake means just noticing in a multidimensional way about life. Like it's not just linear time. And during this time, having that spiritual support, because we often forget that it's there and it's available for us. And then that, what has been hidden will be revealed. And there's being so much that's being revealed to us. Consciousness of the earth is rising, and I'm really excited to see it.
I am too. I've mentioned this once or twice on the show before, and I had this moment when I was a kid, and I think I was about 7. And I remember I was standing by my closet door, and I just had this feeling like this was it. This was like the time of all times that I was going to witness transformation on the planet like
Wow.
never before.
Wow.
But at my age, I had no idea what that was going to be, which was very odd. And I actually didn't really remember that till many years later when things started to shift on the planet and things started to kind of fall apart a little bit from what we had known prior. And then I had that memory surface and I thought, oh my gosh, this is it, So, yeah, so exciting. I wonder if you don't mind explaining a little bit about what I mentioned in the introduction. What happened? You decided to meditate, and then could you fill us in about that?
Yeah. So I am a retired registered nurse. I did work in intensive care. And then I was asked to go to hospice to, hospice was traditionally known for cancer patients, but they asked me to go over and help train the hospice nurses in regards to um, end of life heart disease, lung disease, and those types of things. So it was only meant to be a temporary transfer. And I ended up loving it and ended up staying. But I call it my down on my knees moment where life really seemed to be going well. And then I had 3 family members in various stages of the dying process. And it just seemed like just one after another. And I hear this often from people where they will have several family members seem to leave the planet all at the same time. And at that time, I had no concept of the spirit world. As a nurse, we would help facilitate just the family coming together and keeping their loved one comfortable in the dying process. But beyond that, I didn't really think much beyond that. And the other hospice nurses really didn't either. I remember one of the hospice nurses had said to me, she goes, I told the family, don't leave. Your father's still here. And I remember saying to her, like, what inspired you to say that? Like, it just felt like so foreign. She goes, I don't know, but it just came out of my mouth before I had a chance to take it. And so she described it as still feeling the presence of the loved one in the room. And so I share that because it's such contrast to where I am now. But it was my favorite aunt who had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And so that was my kind of breaking point. I had my sister-in-law was only 33. She was my best friend. She was the spontaneity to my predictiveness. And she was the one that liked to do these kind of radical, fun, last minute things to my planning, where I like to plan things. And so when she called one day and I expected her to, be jovial and joking, she was very quiet. She said, I have something to share with you. And that she had pancreatic cancer and she only had less than 8 weeks to live because they took a long time to diagnose it because she was 33. So I had this moment where I'm a nurse. I have 2 kind of preteen kids. My husband's a police officer. And I just went into the bedroom and I thought, I've watched enough movies to where when people pray, they get down on their knees because I had no concept of how to pray. So I locked the door, went in, got on my knees, put my hands together. And my question was, God, why do people have to die? And then I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed, really got it out, and then dried my tears and went on my way, being a mother and trying to help keep things together for the family. Well, when I think about it now, it was like I had this sense that I've I've heard that when people meditate, that helps them to calm because I was stressed, anxious, panicky. And I always share that the coping mechanisms that I had up to that point, suddenly they just weren't working anymore. I just couldn't work through it. I couldn't keep burning the candles on both ends. I just couldn't be sleeping 4 hours a night while I'm trying to cook meals and things like that. So none of that was working. But I got this sense I was going to go get a meditation book. So I went to the bookstore, found this little paperback meditation book, brought it home in its little brown paper sack, and I hid it on my bookshelf. I mean, this is 30 years ago. I didn't want my husband or anybody to see it because at that time, it was really questionable, if you meditated. So after my husband and my kids went to bed, I quietly tiptoed downstairs. I slipped it out of its little brown paper bag. I read the first chapter, which said, turn down the lights, put on soft music, light a candle, and breathe. So that was kind of ultimately, I spent less than 5 minutes. I put it away. I thought that's a good start. Went up to bed, climbed in bed. There was a flash of light. And then I'm standing next to my bed. And I realized I was laying in the bed. And so, of course, it's just, I call it a mind scream, where you're screaming in your mind. And that's really how it started. I continued every time I closed my eyes, I continued to have an out of body experience. My whole body would just collapse and then I'd be out of it and I couldn't get back in it again. And that whole time probably deserves its own book because I was taken on many journeys out of my body. But when I returned to my body the next day, and I continued to work through this, and I continued to not tell anybody about it, but I was suddenly sighted, which means I would go to work, but I could see everybody's auras and their chakras. And I had no concept of even what I was looking at. I could hear their thoughts. I could see angels. I could see loved ones when a patient would would leave their body. I'd see them standing there, sometimes a little disoriented or sometimes, having loved ones. And so I eventually told my parents because I thought maybe I should have them take me to the mental hospital because that's all that I knew based on my nurse's training. But everything about me was normal. I could still work, I could still engage with people, but I had to pretend that what I was seeing wasn't there. And that hasn't changed 30 years later. I still have that visual ability.
All right. Well, I have some questions for you. So all of that, you meditated one time.
One time,
One
5
time.
minutes.
All right. Wow.
But I was stressed. I was at a breaking point.
Yes. Yeah, because it's not really the meditation, right?
Yeah.
It's the ask.
Why do people have to die?
It's the opening up to an answer.
And the answer was, we don't die. We just shed our body.
Wow. That's really incredible. And I was going to ask you before you mentioned the mental institution, I was going to say, did you think you were crazy?
I had no concept what to think. I felt normal having an abnormal experience.
Yeah. Now, somebody who, what you've described is truly remarkable because, from my perspective, because there are people who want to be clairaudient, clairvoyant, they want to see and feel and know and have those senses or those abilities where they can actually live with them, like what you're saying. You have that ability still today to see. But for you, it was like a switch, so to speak,
Exactly.
a before and after type moment. And now today you teach people how to do this. So from somebody who it occurred to or occurred with, I don't know how to say that, but you know what I mean. And then somebody who is seeking that for years, how do you bridge that gap? What do you help us here Teach us, Nancy. How do we develop our psychic senses?
Well, so in the beginning, of course, I didn't have names for it. And, there is a cute story where I was pretty desperate. I was losing sleep. And I had a sense of knowing that if I didn't get help soon, I was probably going to have a psychotic break. And I had this knowing that if that happened, I might not make it back. So so I had this sense about this. So I know that those were that was spiritual wisdom coming through where I was being guided to find help. So there was a hospice nurse wearing flowy clothes and Birkenstock shoes. And so I just kind of slipped my way over and scooted up my little chair. And I said, could I bother you for just a minute? And I said, you look like somebody who might know what's happening to me. And she said, yeah, and so she listened to my story up until that point, what had been happening. And by this time I'm passing through walls and doors and flying above the earth. And anyway, she looks at me and she says, well, my sense is what's happening to you is called an out-of-body experience. And if that's true, I'm going to be really pissed off because I've been trying to do that for years.
Yeah.
But she was able to guide me to some books very specific for my situation. There came a point, I would say about that happened in 94. So around 2002, I was asked if I could teach others how to do what I do. And I was like, wow, I don't know, because it just comes to me, so I didn't know what that kind of system was. And that's where it started. I would have a hit about a psychic hit, and then I would slow it down. Something just told me to slow down the steps. And so let's say that an angel moves into the room, and it's like, all right, so what happened before that? And then I would kind of try to recall what was I thinking, or what was I concerned about? Was I worried, or was I curious? So I kind of slowed it down, and then I would oh, I've just had a ringing in the air. Oh, the atmospheric pressure in the room shifted, and so I would just go through the steps slowly. And that's when I began to be able to track what happens. So whether it's and then I began to realize as I started teaching and sharing with people, it's like, oh, wait a minute. We all have these abilities. I had these abilities long before my out-of-body experience. And so, yeah, then I just started teaching people. And now I've been teaching for over 25 years. And it's what's important for people to learn is what their intuitive style is, and to respect it and to honor it and to appreciate it at the level they receive information. So I would say less than 20% of the population on Earth are seers. They can see energy fields. It might even be less than that. But the majority of people, they'll just spend so much time trying to see, and they're ignoring all of the other ways that spirit is communicating to them. So it's a lot of, I don't know. My students are just fantastic, and I'm really blown away by how natural it's becoming for everyone. Like, they're already awakening. They just need a little container to learn how to start managing it.
Right. And don't you find that as more people gather, as we talk about it more with each other, it just makes everything smoother, easier, more attainable? Because if I think back to you with that book in the bag, because you just didn't want anybody to even know about meditation. Oh my gosh. That's like a whole different world than today.
Yeah.
But what hope that there is, for us too. But if people aren't seeing, what are they doing? So if 20% or less, is your estimation of seeing, how else are they getting information? Because they may not even recognize it.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that might be helpful for people.
Yeah. Well, I think for most people intuitively nowadays, and I almost wish, we do the clairs and everybody talks about the four clairs. And I almost feel like we kind of, that's served its purpose, but is kind of old and outdated because clairvoyance, it's a French word. So I like to just go, you're either a clear feeler, so you're an empath. And what people don't know about clear feeling is you can feel if somebody has brown hair and blue eyes. You can feel if they're 6 feet tall or 4'11". You can feel if they have a jovial personality or they're angry and grumpy. Like a lot of times, empaths, feelers, they sense that that's one ability to just feel, but you can do an entire reading on someone just through feeling. And then the next one is clear hearing. And clear hearing, one of the biggest misconceptions about hearing is they sense traditionally it comes through the ears, just like me talking in the microphone and you hear it. And in actuality, it's in the head. It's telepathic, or a new term I really like that's being used a lot is mind speak. We're speaking mind to mind. It was really interesting in all the years I've been teaching. So clairaudient means clear hearing. It would be very rare if I met someone who was clairaudient. So you can be a clear hearing and you can do an entire reading on someone and you will hear in your mind, this person's hanging on to grief. You know, um, this person has 3 children. This person has a stressful job. Like you can hear those. The color of your aura is orange. You will hear it. You won't see it, feel it, or know it. And then seeing, which is my most predominant type, is that I can see things and spirit communicates to me in pictures and images and symbols. But then I have to interpret what the symbol means. And that's taken me a long time to develop that skill and get good at it when I see something going on in somebody's energy field through pictures. But I may have no clue what they're feeling. I may not know that they're stressed or anything like that. I've got to go through the pictures first. And then there's clear knowing, which is the highest level of intuitive psychic ability. And it's the least appreciated because I just know they're having a hard time. I don't know how I know that I just know I need to take this job. I know it's under my skill level, but I just know it's going to lead to something bigger. But we so don't appreciate it because it just doesn't seem to come with a lot of bells and whistles. It's just, I call it, that I can feel it in my bones that this needs to happen. So those are the 4 main ways. But where we are now, our DNA, our genetics is getting super activated. It's like that switch that happened for me. It's happening for everybody in the world. A switch is getting flipped. Our DNA is getting activated. And one of the first things that's happening is people just minding their own business like I was are suddenly sighted or suddenly psychic, suddenly know things. And in that, you can have someone who can do a full psychic reading just through smell alone or through taste alone, being an earth intuitive, being a star intuitive, where that you can hear the planets moving. You can hear the planets engaging with each other. there is just so much that's happening on the planet right now as far as intuition. It's being very normalized. We have to normalize it
Yeah.
because it's here.
Yeah, that's totally the future. I love the mind speak because it gets us out of the Star Trek,
Teleportation and all that.
telepathy, that whole thing, because many people have an association with the word telepathy of like some sci-fi thing far
Yeah.
away, kind of thing that,
And it sounds hierarchical, um, like as a mother, we all know what our baby needs. How do you know what your baby needs when it's crying? Does it need to be changed? Is it tired? Is it this? Like we can pick that up. How do we know when the baby's in the womb? So the baby's already communicating with the mother, and the mother's already communicating with the baby through that mind speak. And the
yeah.
telepathy tapes, I haven't had a chance to listen to those, but they are just really, have you heard of them?
No. What
Oh
is that?
my.
What
It's
is
the
that?
podcast. It has surpassed all the number one podcast. It's where they were finding that nonverbal autistic children can communicate through mind speak, and they can hear what their mother's thinking, and then they can
Mm.
respond to it. So they're making a documentary on it right now, but it's called the Telepathy Tapes. Yep.
Oh, well, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I don't have an explanation for this, but I think I mean, I've always known that they've been doing that. So to me, it's like, oh, yeah, okay. Um, but I guess if they can prove it or document it or
And they
something, and
can. Yeah.
and then that's exciting because a lot of people need that and want that, and there's a lot of value there for sure. But that's wonderful.
The science is rapidly uh, catching up with things that we've always known.
I get that a lot in the Reiki world. People like, oh, that doesn't work, and where's all the scientific studies? And there's some out there, but there's not a lot of money for that kind of thing. And I think too, we need to trust our experiences, um, and rely on our experiences and our discernment as to does something have value for me? And you know what? That's enough. If it has value for you, that's enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and my thing recently is, who taught you to be afraid of intuition? And they'll
Yes.
say, well, they might say it was the church, or they might say, my mother, or, and then it's like, yeah, but then who taught the church? Like, where is that original fear come from? And I don't have the answer, but I'm encouraging people to go beyond just shutting that door and saying, oh no, that's not real, to say, who said that wasn't real? Because there have been a lot of studies. There have been so many studies. And I know this because we had an experience with someone where, and I don't need to go into the whole story, but they had been diagnosed with either schizophrenia or bipolar. And, and they managed to, I think through meditation, kind of get some stability in their life. And then they joined one of my classes. So I didn't know that they had this extended mental health history. But they kept getting better and better and better and better and better. And so then when they went back to the psychologist, they had to get retested because they were going to need to get a license for something. So they had to be retested. And all the previous issues were gone. They were stable. And so the psychologist had, what did you do? And so they wanted to study what we did, but then COVID hit. And
Oh,
so we had to kind of put it aside. But what the psychologists, there were two of them, were able to research, there's been a lot of very, very accurate studies. But the reason why they weren't released, people didn't want to lose their jobs or their reputation.
yeah. Yeah. Because of the woo woo or whatever.
And the powers that be that can
Mm-hmm.
shut it down.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny you saying what's kind of coming up for you lately. Yeah. it is interesting, right? Because we'll have a different focus, depending on how we're moving through the world, what we're seeing, and our
Yeah.
perspective and our experience. And for me, it's that woo woo thing lately. I've been thinking about, you know what? Who cares? I think we need to just say, embrace the woo woo.
Right.
What's the worst thing that can happen? We have
Be
experiences.
curious.
Yeah,
You don't have to hang your hat on it. You don't have
right.
to believe it. But what's happening in the world right now is we are expanding so rapidly in consciousness that I love this word, the neuroplasticity. It's like, the stretching. We must get our brains and our minds to be able to stretch into a state that's a little more open minded, to make it more comfortable for us, because such high levels of intelligence and wisdom is really coming through for the whole, all of humanity. And so why not explore things that maybe you held at arm's length before? If I could give myself permission, I don't have to believe any of this stuff. It's a lot easier for me to pay attention.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And to go back to your point a minute ago is, well, who declared this as woo woo?
That's right.
Who said it's woo woo? So how
Exactly.
about we just drop all the labels and have some experiences and,
Exactly. Yeah.
see what
Yeah.
happens. Yeah,
Exactly.
I like that. Um, so if we get back to developing our senses, what would what advice would you give for somebody who wants to develop their senses? Is it meditation? Is it what is it? What can they do?
The first thing is just to recognize it and say, I wonder what that was about, wonder what that sense was about. Because I defined intuition as a hunch, you know. I had a hunch, my gut instinct is telling me this. Uh, and it's hit or miss. It may come, it may not come. And as most people complain, your intuition doesn't come when you feel like you really need it the most. And then it'll just come up in these random ways. So it's like to start to notice it. And I always say, like, keep a journal, keep a log to see if it ends up turning out to be true. Psychic, I define as intuition, but with high level precision. And you can learn to be psychic and turn it off and on at will. You can learn how to tune in and go deeper, get much more detailed information, very much like remote viewing, where they can tune in and see a building and what's inside the building and what's inside the offices. That's psychic, ability. But grounding is the first thing that I always want people to learn, is how to ground their energy field to the center of the earth, because our intuitive, this kind of high level sensory ability that comes through is like an electrical current that we can't see. And just like an electrical current into our house, it needs to be grounded, or you've got electricity shooting all over the place. And so for people who are learning, it's like you want to learn how to ground. And I do have free grounding meditations through my website. But this is the cool thing about grounding. Just like electricity, if it's grounded, you can channel that electricity to your kitchen light and turn it on. Well, it's the same with intuition. You now have some ability to start to manage it. And that's ultimately where everybody's learning, is to how to manage it. Because we've got so much information coming in right now. And so grounding is the number one thing. Yep.
Yeah.
Because it enhances your intuition. It turns the volume up.
Yeah, because it creates a steady stream
Yeah.
of energy. Yeah.
And
Instead
a
of,
strong, steady
yes.
stream. Yeah.
And that's how we can amplify and carry more current. Yes. And I think that's I actually think that that's quite revolutionary in your answer there. And the reason I say that is I think there are a lot of people who poo-poo on grounding and the earth and stuff like that because they want to be, spiritual and in the clouds and, ascending and all of that. And I think a lot of people just aren't enamored with the earth very much. And I
Nope.
think that's such a
Or the
shame.
human body.
Yes, or the human body, which my sense, especially recently, and so I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I think our connection with the earth and our human bodies, that is the frontier for us to really engage. That right there, I feel, is the gateway to everything that we're really looking for. What do you think about that?
I think you just nailed it because it is the absolute truth.
Mhm.
And I had a student the other day because I said, you do know, don't you, that your human body is part of your spirit. It's a part of your spirit that was slowed way down so that it could form into matter. And it's your spirit that decided it wanted to be in a female body or a male body. It wanted a heavy body or a light body. It wanted to be tall or short. And she's like, okay, I need a minute. I need a minute on that one. Because what have we been taught? We've been taught that our bodies are these lowly worms that is the flesh that is weak, you know, and that, we're always going to do the wrong thing if we let our bodies participate. And it's just the furthest thing from the truth because it is our bodies that help teach our spirit how to manifest and form, which most people like to manifest money. It requires your physical body, your creativity in your body, your emotions, like all of those things. It requires for you to manifest, building a family or going to school. And so, it's interesting. I have a really great story if it's that can really make this point. So I had a friend who was teaching a class, and she'd been teaching her students a very high level. They had reached a high level, and she phoned me and she said, "Got a little bit of an issue here because I can't take them to the next level because it's like a car going down the road at 100 miles an hour and their tires blow out. Every time I try to really get them to ramp up, they just can't go there." And so she said, I keep trying to tell them about grounding. So anyway, I ended up flying to the state where she was teaching, and I was to work with the group all weekend. So there was a woman in the class. They were, oh my gosh, they were so nice and so welcoming. And but there was a woman in the class. She said, "I've been meditating for 20 years. I lived part of my life in India, and I meditate, but my life is still in a constant state of crisis. Like no matter how much I try to get it to calm down, things are always falling apart." So I said, "Well, do you mind if I take a look at your energy field while you meditate? Maybe I can see what's happening here." And she went right into meditation, and I watched her float about 10, 20 feet above her head. Body's very relaxed, eyes closed, she's breathing. And I'm like, all right, you can come on back. I see what the issue is. She wasn't in her body. You can't, it's the body that is going through the traumas or the crisis, or you can't move that while you're out of your body. So then I just taught her how to come into her body, how to ground through it, how to let it swirl around, in the pelvis and the lower chakras. And she was able to start moving energy. But that's the difference, is you can only go so far floating out of the body. And if you really want to go far in your spiritual expansion, you need the body.
Yeah. When you were talking, I love the story, by the way. thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of people could benefit from that example. What I was going to say is, while you were talking, I had this visual of a wave, and it's the very crest of the wave, that very tip of the wave is kind of like the body, you know, because it's the leading edge into the experience. That's how we perceive, as a human, is through the body, our quote unquote normal senses that we think about a lot. But that was just very interesting to me, that that foam on the leading edge, kind of similar to our human form.
Yeah.
But I loved how you described that, of just very slow energy of our. Can you say that one more time, how you described it?
It's like you've got this, ball of clay, and you take a piece and you shape it into something. So and then you've got the very high, high, high multidimensional level of your same soul, your same spirit that can, communicate, hang out with the angels. We're this full spectrum. And for a lot of us, they want to hang out up there in those higher frequencies. They don't want to feel the body. But that's what makes us here on Earth so unique. That's in this Earth school, it's like, as spirit, we'll practice, 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 maybe in other realms, maybe on other planets, if that exists, whatever. And then it's like, okay, you've reached the highest level that you can reach now. Now you're ready to go to Earth. And that's a whole different concept for people, because they think we're kind of here to be punished. Well, it's just not. I know all your listeners, anybody that's going to listen to this, they're going to be able to relate to the fact that it's hella hard to manage our emotions. It's not easy. And so we're here to learn how to do that, and learn how to manifest into matter, and learn, like, there's a lot that we get to learn, and it is a lot of fun when you become conscious of it.
Yes. And so, where do you see us going with these senses as we develop? And you mentioned the DNA changing and things like that. Where are we going? Where are we heading?
Things are rapidly changing. And I was thinking about that this morning, because that's what most people want to know. That, it's like they want the, the instruction manual. What can we expect next? So things are rapidly shifting. And, but it is my sense that we're awakening so rapidly. And awake to me means, it doesn't mean like, I see God and I'm blissed out. I'm not talking about that type of awakening. I'm just talking about, awakening to the fact that you're an incredible being, awakening to the fact that you are such a light in the world, waking up to the fact you've got a friggin' great sense of humor. You could be a stand-up comedian. It's like waking up to all the greatness that we are and that others are. This is my personal opinion. We're at this line in the sand, and for us to go where anybody dreams of going in their life, that it's going to require intuitive navigation system. It's going to require being able to know more and sense more about all that's happening at a spiritual level. For this next level, because the frequencies are going up, I do feel like we've got more of a handle on things than we might think that we do. But I'm always quick to follow up with that and say, I, kind of half glass full as part of my nature, but I do feel that. So what do I know to be a truth is we are waking up so fast to our psychic intuitive ability that it's disorienting. that it's gonna, some people might freak out a little bit, because it's like, how did I know that? It's like, well, you're a spiritual being, it's okay. You're going to be okay. You're going to know more things. Um, and so I really feel like with people like with you and other people, it's like, it's okay. I remember in the beginning, I was a little I was kind of scared too. I didn't know what to think. But you've got this, and I'm going to help you along the way. And we've had a lot of people, spiritual people preparing for a long time, getting ready for this awakening.
That's for sure. When you were talking about awakening and what it meant, what it means to you, kind of what came to my mind, because I was thinking, well, what does it mean to me? I guess we all might have different
Yes.
definitions of that.
Yeah.
How I would describe it, I think, goes right along with how you described it. And that was uh, waking up to our limitlessness, shedding all those limiting
Yes.
beliefs and making,
Yes.
we don't have to agree to that stuff anymore.
We are having this big shift at the end of March that is it's this just enormous activation system of this blue light that's coming through, and it's helping us to manage our human bodies to create a light body, because our human bodies are becoming lighter, and they are able to take in more of our spiritual body. And because if right now, the way our human bodies are, we can take in a little bit of our spirit, but just like that electricity that I was talking about, it can be a bit much for our nervous system. And so meditation can really help to keep the body calm as we are expanding into that illuminating light.
I have to go here, which I'm going here because of the listeners and what I hear people say and ask. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm going to have to go here. And that is, what about the topic of, as we expand, as we meditate, as we work more with this energy, what about protection? What about, is there something to fear with that? Because a lot of people do have those questions.
Especially in the last 30 years, that question was asked a lot more than it is now. But it is still a concern where you want to be discerning. So, where it was before was that if you meditate, you're going to open up to dimensions that you might not be able to close again. And there might be dangerous things there. And so that kept us managed and kept us controlled. Um, and I can't say that's not possible. We live in a multidimensional world. But what I always have taught my students and what I've always said is that stuff's happening anyway. It
Right.
is,
Mm-hmm.
this is the world we live in. And you just turn on the evening news enough to know that there's the dark and there's the light. And it's like, and it's, if I had a choice, or if you have a choice, or the listeners have a choice, wouldn't you want to learn to be conscious of all the abilities that you have so that you can show up as a strong force of light? And I used to use a scenario about the moth to the flame. So, if you turn the porch light on and the moths are drawn to the flame, and it's like, so it's like, well, you don't want the moths to be drawn to the light. And I'm like, they can be drawn to the light and they can just get their wings burned. It's like, I'm not going to shut my light down. But that's why I teach all the different levels that I teach, whether it's the foundational level or people want to learn at higher levels. This is the reality of a multidimensional world that you want to be discerning.
Right. Right. Yeah, I agree with you too. All of it is happening. In the Reiki world, people say, well, I don't know about learning Reiki because I'll open up to all of bad stuff. And it's like, no, it's all happening anyway. It's not like you learn
Well, and you
something new.
strengthen your auric field when you have healings.
Yes.
And we are going through an enormous strengthening process where it's the words that have been coming through from Spirit is you all are becoming a mighty force of light.
Woo, got goosebumps with that.
If that's happening, I want to be a part of that. However, I can see in the multidimensional world, and I have seen things that I can't unsee. And that's why it's like, oh, before my out of body experience, I didn't know any of that was real. And I didn't like knowing that it was real, but I certainly liked knowing that I was a mighty force, a power of light, and that I call it, when you have the light of God, or you have the light of the divine on your side, nothing can touch you. Nothing. I didn't know that before either.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you start to build that and learn that, it's, you're unstoppable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that we're in control of our energy.
We are. And we didn't used to be as much. But now we've been handed the keys to the castle. And there's a story that I share often where I spent the first, good 20 years of my life being what I would say in service to God. So it's like, thy will is my will. And so thy will is my will. And that voice that I know is God said, sell everything and become portable. I sold everything and 2 suitcases and traveled the world for 5 years. It was like, everything I was asked to do, I did. And I was in India, and it's like, we need you to heal. Anything that comes in front of you, we want you to offer healing. And it's like, okay, your will is my will. Your will is my will. And somebody comes up with a half dead chicken. And I look up and I'm like, really? Really? Am I being tested here? But I would do this. It was always the divine's will is my will. I am in service. And one day I said, okay, what is thy will for me today? And then I heard that voice that I know as God said, well, my will is your will. What is your will? And I'm like, oh, no, this isn't how this works. Your will is my will. Oh, no. You've developed enough now that you are a co-creator. What is your will? And Andrea, I didn't know what my will was.
Wow.
I had totally surrendered, which I learned a lot, and I grew, and I was entrusted with a lot of knowledge and wisdom. But then I was like, I don't know what my will is. And so that was the next part of my learning. And right now we're in that phase. Everybody's in that phase now of the divine is asking us, what is your will? Your will is my will. So it's like if God is saying, or Mother Mary, or it's like, what is your will? Just let me know. We'll get it taken care of. And we are in that eye-opening, awakening moment right now to determine what is our will. Are we happy with what's happening in the world? If we have the potential to truly change it, what does that look like? And what do I really want? Because a lot of times we just want whatever's hurting you to stop. But it's like, well, what do you want beyond that? And that's where we are right now. And that's what I find so exciting.
What a remarkable story from all those years ago, and how you've linked it to today and humanity as a whole. I'll be thinking about that one for sure for some time. And you do bring up a good point, because I think a lot of us do get lost when we think about what is the vision? What is we've been so tired for so long of
Oh,
this, that, and the
wow.
next thing. And
Exhausted.
a lot
Hmm.
of people are just in survival mode and to dare to dream. Mm,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. And imagine, and definitely imagine, and pretend, that's one of the best psychic uh, lessons that I have is, all right, so just pretend you could be intuitive, pretend that you could see, pretend that you knew that there were angels around, pretend that you have the ability to create and manifest a better life for yourself. Because the the spirit, it's like it gets your mind out of the way because your mind's like, oh, thank goodness, Nancy, you're not believing that. And so it helps you to bypass the mind. I have another technique that I've named it Who's Driving Your Car? And it's like, are you in the back seat of your car? Is your mind with the hands on the steering wheel? Is your husband or wife with the hands on the steering wheel? Is your boss got the hands on the steering wheel? It's like you pretend and imagine your car, and anybody can just do this, get a moment of quiet. You want your soul right now, your spirit in the driver's seat.
Mm, amen to that. Wow. Nancy, this has just been wonderful. I just love your presence, everything that you have shared with us, so much that I'll be reflecting back on later.
Mhm.
And for our listeners and our audience on YouTube, how can they connect? How can they learn more from you and just keep this going? Where can they reach you?
I am very active on YouTube, and I do teach a lot, and I do guided meditations. I do have often will have free offerings on my website, um, and but intuitivemind.org, org, is my website, and um, my classes, they're all a year long. So my foundational one's a year long, and it's what I would call a hybrid. So part of it's recorded lessons where it's my voice guiding you through the lesson, guiding you through the meditation, and it's an intuitive meditation. It's not like just quieting your mind. You will not be required to quiet your mind. In our classes, we just give the mind a job to do. And then and that's the foundational tools. And then the next one, I kind of call the intermediate one, is if people want to be a professional psychic, if they want to help be a spiritual consultant, they want to help guide people spiritually in their practice. So we definitely have a lot of therapists, psychiatrists, we have physicians, we have a lot of people that want to add that level um, to their work to enhance the work that they already do. And then we have our advanced, where our students are they just want to stay in, and they just want to be able to stay in during this time of change and just we have a great community. So a lot of people get a little intimidated by the year long, but by the time you get to the end of the year, you know it. You know what you're doing. It it's not like a weekend workshop where you really remember it and then you forget. It's like you embody the techniques, and these techniques are incredible.
Yeah. Well, you're living it. A year, there's so much that happens in a year. We
Mhm.
experience so much in the cycle of a year. And I would think that that is a key to that because you're bringing the techniques
Yeah,
into your life like that. So, oh,
yeah, yeah. No,
amazing.
it is amazing. I had a woman who wrote. She was a young woman, and she said, "I think I was born anxious." She said, "As a young child, I was always scared, panicky. Hard to engage with other kids. And now I think she's in her 20s, and she said nothing has ever helped, medication or whatever. And she said after the first week in your foundational program, it was gone.
Wow.
Now, I'm a nurse, so even that startles me.
Mm-hmm.
And as a nurse, I know that it's probably not gone permanently, but to get some relief, you just can't put a price on that, you
No,
know.
no.
And then to know, oh, well, these are the techniques I used the last time my anxiety came up. I'll use them again. And that's very empowering. So I get to hear stories like that all the time. But because it has a psychic intuitive label, a lot of people want to steer clear. But Spirit told me I had to use the word psychic. I'm like, I will never get a student if I use the word psychic. And they're like, don't worry, the world's going to catch up with you. And it has.
And we're so glad. We're so glad. Thank you, Nancy, for joining me.
Oh, you're so
And
welcome.
yeah, I've just loved the time together. Thank you.
It's flown by. Thank you so much. And thank you again for all that you do.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. It's Andrea, and I have a special announcement to make. I'm very excited to announce my 2 Reiki classes that I will be teaching in person this summer. They're going to happen in the United Kingdom. I'm traveling there from Michigan here in the United States, and I cannot wait to meet my Reiki students there. We'll be at the beautiful French Partridge Hotel near Northampton, and I will be teaching a Reiki 1 and 2 class June 13th and 14th, and then the Reiki Masterclass begins the 16th and goes through the 19th. We have special hotel accommodation packages available as well. Again, I cannot wait to meet you there and share Holy Fire Reiki with all of you. But class size is limited. To find out more and reserve your seat, please head over to mainstreamreiki.com. You'll see a banner at the top of the page. Click that. You'll get all the information. If you have questions, send me an email. Thanks so much. I hope it works out that we meet in class. Thank you for listening, and you can check the show notes or visit the website beyondthereikigateway.com to find out more about the podcast and connect with me. Please keep in mind that views and opinions expressed in the show don't necessarily reflect those of the podcast or anyone affiliated with its production or advertising. This program is presented for your entertainment only, and all information provided is to be utilized at the listener's own discretion. I, along with the BTRG team, hope you enjoy the show as much as we enjoy making it for you. Wishing you highest blessings until we meet again beyond the Reiki Gateway.